Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Swiderski, the CEO and founder of Family Source Consultants, and welcome to episode 302 of our Bringing Dreams and Miracles Together podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce our incredible client development advisor, Chris Gao, who had the pleasure of speaking with Alexis Cirel, partner and attorney with the Warshaw Burstein Fertility Law Group in New York. In this episode, we dive deep into what intended parents need to know about family building via surrogacy in New York. Alexis and Chris explore the unique requirements and protections provided under New York law, shed light on the process of establishing parentage through surrogacy, and discuss 4 distinct scenarios where these laws come into play. It's an episode filled with valuable insights for anyone navigating a surrogacy journey in New York, so let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Family Source Consultants podcast. My name is Chris Gao. I'm the Client Development Advisor at Family Source Consultants, and I'll be your host today. In this episode, we'll have a special guest joining us, Alexis Cirel. She's a licensed attorney in New York and a founding partner of the Fertility Law Group at Warshaw Burstein. Welcome, Alexis.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and it's a pleasure to have you. And so today we'll be talking about surrogacy in New York State, and we know, it's one of the greatest states in the country, but it's not one of the first states that where surrogacy is legal. So there has been a long journey for surrogacy in the U.S., and I think we have the pleasure of talking about the ins and outs of surrogacy in New York with our audience today. So first, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, thank you. So like you said, my name's Alexis Cirel, and I'm currently a partner at a law firm, a big, medium-sized law firm in New York City, multidisciplinary. So we cover a lot of different practice areas, but I'm a family law attorney and founded the Fertility Law Group within our family law group. I, more importantly, am a mother through surrogacy myself. So I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, both through surrogacy, and I'm a New York resident. So if you do the math, you know that the law changed in New York in 2021. You know that I had to go out of state and do my whole journey, my parentage process out of state. And it was kind of through that experience that
Mm-hmm.
I got involved in practicing in this area here.
Right, right.
And yeah, and I can get more into the etiology of how the law came about and my involvement in it, but that's who I am.
I see. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, for sharing your background and also your personal journey. It's always nice for intended parents to hear the story from a fellow intended parent as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So far, I believe New York is the only state that requires surrogacy agencies to be licensed. Can you help us understand what it really means and what are the pros and cons of having that specific requirement?
Yeah. So like you said, I mean, you said New York's one of the greatest states, but at the same time, it really didn't make sense conceptually that we were also so far behind, lagging so far behind when surrogacy was outlawed here until recently. Um,
Hmm.
and once we were able to get the law changed in 2021, it went into
Hmm.
effect. At the same time, our Department of Health promulgated regulations that went in parallel to our new parentage law, surrogacy parentage law. And the regulations, part of them, what they did was essentially say any matching, we call them matching programs here, any agency that's doing business in New York needs to be licensed. And
Right.
what that means is essentially satisfy, a set of criteria, um, and then demonstrate to the Department of Health that that's been satisfied in order to get a license. Once licensed, of course, that means then you're regulated, right? And so
Hmm.
licensing doesn't just mean applying for and getting the license. it means ongoing compliance, right? And so there's some
Hmm.
government oversight with how an agency conducts business. So, I think I don't know that I can identify cons and pros because I think that there are perfectly good reasons out there why an agency
Yep.
may not want to get licensed in New York. Um, but some of the pros are that you can feel confident that if an agency
Hmm.
has its New York license, it's satisfied the conflict of interest requirements, for example, that there have been background checks done on anybody in a place of ownership. It absolutely can instill a sense of if you're a person that goes on the Better Business Bureau before you buy something or commit to involvement with a company on an issue, it kind of gives you that sense of, okay, I don't need to do all the vetting myself
Hmm.
if you're an intended parent. But like I said, I also think, it's an expensive process probably for agencies. It's a time consuming process. And frankly, some agencies may not even need to do business in New York to be perfectly successful. So I don't know that there are cons other than that, but it's not to say that only good agencies are licensed in New York, but I do think it is a way of feeling confident that there's oversight and regulation.
Absolutely. I mean, just, working in the field, I always feel like there should be more regulations or guidelines for surrogacy agencies. And I know Family Source Consultants has been a huge advocate for just, more regulations and guidelines from authorities or from states. And we're so happy to see that, New York is so far the only, but just the first state to have this type of regulation. I truly think other states will catch up at some point as well.
I do too. And you make a good point, right? Like it's not like we're this industry, for lack of a better term, is just completely rogue, right? We have SEEDS, which is the Society of
Hmm.
Ethical and Donation and Surrogacy, and we have ethical guidelines that we as a community uh, put out as best practice. And so all of that is there, but I think to probably for intended parents mostly,
Hmm.
it's if you don't know this world, you don't know what that is, but you know what a department
Exactly.
of health is, you know what a
Yeah.
government body is, and so that might be that might give people a sense of confidence.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, are there any kind of like other unique requirements that New York State has, but most other states don't?
Yeah, so New York State has the one and only Surrogates Bill of Rights, and that is part of our statute. Essentially, it is a listing of all of the inalienable, points that you cannot contract out of, right? So,
Hmm.
for
Hmm. Hmm.
example, the surrogate is entitled to health insurance for the duration of the pregnancy at intended parents'
Right.
um, expense. What that means is you can't have a contract provision that says otherwise, right? And so
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
have a list of these rights that protect surrogates, the right to make all health and welfare decisions for herself, et cetera. And some people, I think, across the country view this as more onerous for intended parents. I think
Hmm.
what it really is just a codification of how we all practice and the best practices and what's actually enforceable in surrogacy agreements everywhere.
Hmm.
So we pride ourselves in it that it's a really it's a strength that we have as part of our statute,
Hmm.
and it should be viewed that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, New York never fails to, surprise us in such a good way, right? So for the intended parents out there who may not have done, or I guess I should say potential intended parents out there who may have not done a ton of research about surrogacy yet, can you share a little bit about how exactly attorneys are involved in the surrogacy process in New York? and what roles attorneys play exactly?
Yes, definitely. So, whereas in other states, if you're working with an agency, for example, you can have in-house counsel, meaning an attorney who's affiliated or employed by the agency represent you. New York makes that a conflict. So if you are doing a New York journey, your agency has to be independent from your legal counsel. So I'm going to answer the question like as if we're in a New York paradigm because it might be a little bit different if you're working with an attorney who's in-house at an agency.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. So, but in New York, I say, but I'm a lawyer. I say the sooner you can get um, a discussion with an attorney who knows this work, the better. Mostly because, you know, it's not just about drafting a surrogacy agreement for intended parents. It's
Hmm.
also about understanding at the outset what do these agency contracts mean that I'm
Hmm.
interpreting and signing, these service agreements. What does
Absolutely.
it mean? That's a good thing to have counsel about. Also, sir, when you're an intended parent and you're being shown profiles and potential matches, um, there, as you know, laws vary by state. So it would be nice to have somebody to say, like, I saw a profile from a woman who's in New Hampshire. I saw a profile of a woman, who's in Wisconsin, and to know what are the legal nuances of the parentage process in that
Hmm.
state before you decide as an intended parent to go forward.
Hmm.
So I think that's another benefit to having counsel. But those are if you want them to be. Those are elective things. Really, what you absolutely need an attorney for is to draft the surrogacy agreement between intended
Hmm.
parents and the surrogate and her spouse, if she has one, and then to actually formalize the parentage process to get a judgment of parentage at some point pre or post birth.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you shared that because we at Family Source Consultants always tell parents, hey, surrogacy is a long and complicated journey. It's a long and complicated process, right? There are so many parties and so many different professionals involved in this, but just know that we're all here with the same goal. We want you to succeed. Every party involved is here to help you succeed and achieve your end goal. And we always encourage parents to start talking with an attorney up front, even
Yeah,
like, potentially before you have embryos created or before you have a surrogate match, but as soon as you decide, hey, surrogacy is going to be what I pursue,
yeah,
talk to an attorney, and we're happy to recommend attorneys if an intended parent doesn't have one, but we want them to understand the legal ins and outs of surrogacy, and if they decide to move forward with FSC, we always encourage them to review our contract with their attorney as well, so they understand, so their attorney can explain the contract in a plain everyday language to parents, right?
yeah,
Because all these
yeah,
contracts are complicated. So thank you so much for sharing that. And
yeah,
we know like New York State may not be the best state for international intended parents, but can you break it down for us? Like, what kind of scenarios where this New York surrogacy laws will apply? So let's say, for example, we have an intended parent that's a New York resident and matched with a New York surrogate. Or scenario number two, if we have a New York intended parent but an out-of-state surrogate,
yes,
and scenario number three, we have an out-of-state intended parent working with a New York surrogate. And
yes.
scenario number four will be international intended parents. That I kind of already give it away, but can you just break it down for us a little bit, like, what scenarios the New York law will apply?
Yes. Okay. Scenarios 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those were if it's a New York match, meaning New
Right.
York intended parents and a New York surrogate. And when we say New York intended parents, that means under our statute residing here for at least 6 months at the time of contract signing.
Okay.
That's scenario one. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
you can if New York law will apply then. Scenario two, I think you said was New York intended parents, but maybe an out of
Parents.
state surrogate.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. Once again, yes, our statute will extend to that scenario also. Now, number
Mm-hmm.
three is requires some clarification. Number three
Okay.
is the scenario where you have
Out of
out of state.
state
Yep.
parents, but New York surrogate.
Yes, exactly. So our statute is has a little bit of internal conflict about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's vague, and if you read it to the letter, in some places people have interpreted it as saying, okay, no, we don't permit that in New York. Other places, it does look like it's permitted. And so we did some digging and we went back to legislative history and what was the intent here. And the intent certainly was not to exclude that, right? The intent
Mm-hmm.
was to say if there's a surrogate in New York, she she will benefit from the protections of New York law, even if the intended parents don't reside here. And so what we
Okay.
did was we went and we did what we call it some cleanup, right? And we're
Mm-hmm.
hoping that
Mm-hmm.
that's going to go into law soon to
Mm-hmm.
clarify that. But in the
Okay.
meantime, what we've been doing is we have been doing some of these arrangements and we've been saying to courts, this was the intent of the law. Grant the parentage based on intent. So
Mm-hmm.
my answer really is, technically right now it's kind of ambiguous,
Okay.
but the intent and ultimately I think the clarification will come out is that out of state parents can benefit from the New York law with a New York surrogate.
Okay.
Okay,
Got it.
international.
Right.
International, so our statute does not permit that. Our statute does require that parties are either citizens or permanent residents, so green card is
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we have provision in our statute that allows courts to say, we can look at the intent of the parties, we can look at the best interests of the child. And so if there are some deviations from strict compliance with the statute, we can still get parentage on that basis. So that has been done, just
I
like in
see.
scenario three. It's been
Okay.
done, but it is technically a deviation from strictly complying with the law.
I see. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for
Sorry,
sharing all the detail.
like it was overly legal and dorky, but
No, no, it's important to
yeah,
for intended parents to know all these things because a lot of times people especially for international intended parents, like the concept of different states having
yeah,
completely different laws may be new to them. And
right,
I think
right,
it's very important for, for parents to understand, while the United States is one country, but it doesn't mean every state is the same.
right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, it is. It's a whole different concept and a messy one.
So, in the state of New York, do intended parents must have a medical necessity to work with a surrogate?
Nope, nope. There's no
Nope.
requirement of medical necessity here.
Okay. Well, yeah, I know some states do have that
Yeah,
requirement and some
yeah.
states don't, so it's good to know that New York does not have that requirement. What about fertility clinics? So, say, does the fertility clinic have to be in New York State for the New York law to apply?
No, nope,
No. Okay.
absolutely not.
So, all right. So basically, that means intended parents can choose any fertility clinic in the U.S. to work with, and embryo transfer does not have to take place in the state of New York.
That's right. So we have a residency requirement, like I said before, right? Somebody has to live here, um,
Hmm.
but it doesn't specify beyond that.
Right. Okay. And
It does
we.
have to be, if I'm getting hyper technical, like the physician who performs the medicine has to be licensed in a certain way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that it's
To
taking
be
place in New York.
in New York. Okay, got it. And we do have one question that parents always ask. What is, the process to get legal parentage?
Yes,
And is it secure? Is it safe? How do I know
yeah,
I'm going to be the, legal parent? Can you please walk us through the process of establishing, legal parentage in New York?
yes, absolutely. So New York is a great, efficient state for legal parentage, for getting the judgment of parentage. So we do pre-birth orders. We
Mm-hmm.
generally file electronically, so there's no, um, you know, walking down to the courthouse with everybody there. We
Mm-hmm.
file it electronically. It's a petition for parentage, and essentially protect, especially when we have a contract that's fully compliant, we can just say to the court, issue the judgment based on the certification of the lawyers that we did everything by the book. And in most cases, we get that pre-birth. In some cases, some counties, because it varies a little, some judges have required a Zoom. I don't even want to say really like a hearing, because it's not really a hearing. It's just some kind of an appearance, a Zoom or in person, to just kind of go through and confirm that everything in the papers is accurate. But we don't really have hearings, except that like I said before, our law does allow for a court to issue parentage, even if we weren't doing everything by the book, if we can demonstrate the intent and the best interest. And that would probably require some kind of further interaction with the court. But in most cases, we just file the petition, we do it electronically, we get our pre-birth order. That's then given to the birthing hospital. And after birth, we notify the court that there's been a child born through the surrogacy arrangement, and then we get a final parentage order with the child's name on it. Now, in terms of birth certificates, parents get their names on the birth certificates. The birth certificates do not say amended. However, all behind closed doors in the bureaucracy, the process is that the surrogate's name will go on a birth certificate that is never issued, and that is immediately and forever sealed. And then the one that is issued has the parents' names on it.
Right, got it. So there is basically some sort of documentation behind the scenes
Yeah.
saying that there is a surrogate involved, but parents will never have to worry about having the surrogate's name on the actual certificate. And the certificate the parents receive and will use for whatever needs will only
Correct.
have the parents' names on it, right?
That's right. That's right. As a matter of fact, the order that we get from the court specifically direct all the relevant government bodies to issue that birth certificate with the parents. And as we all know, or we should know, and we can take this lesson here, it's like birth certificates are important, but remember, they don't convey legal standing or rights or obligations. What's doing that is that judgment of parentage that you get even before your baby's born.
Yeah, absolutely. And, parents ask all the time, do I have to legally adopt the child after birth? And, that kind of question, we completely understand it's a very legit concern, but I hope all the listeners out there, your takeaway from what Alexis just shared is that in the state of New York, you do not have to worry about adopting your child after the baby's born through surrogacy, because your names will be on the certificate. You don't have to go through additional process to change the parent's name.
That's exactly right. And I'll do you one better. One better is that also in New York, intended parents don't have to be married. And it doesn't matter, sexual orientation. It doesn't matter if you're in a single intended parent. So we don't have any parentage flowing from marital relationships, whatever it is. It's based on your intent. And as long as you've satisfied that, your name is going to also be on that parentage order. So you don't need to do an adoption.
Got it. So you mentioned the petition will be filed before the child is born. That's why it's a pre-birth order. Can you share at what stage exactly is the petition filed?
At what? I didn't hear what you said.
At what stage?
Oh, what stage? We generally do it in the second trimester, but actually
Trimester.
the statute reads you can do it anytime.
Okay, got it. Yeah, just to, make sure things go very smoothly, and you typically start it pretty early on in second
Yes.
trimester, and okay, sounds good. So, last but not least, do you have any advice to, the prospective intended parents out there who are considering building their families via surrogacy, but may or may not have made a decision yet?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, two things. Two things. I can tell you
Mhm.
from a professional perspective, having done this for a while and only this. Um, you know, the horror stories that you come up with in your head at night or that you may once in a while read in the headlines are so much the outliers, that's noise. Try not to listen to that noise. Surrogacy is a absolute miracle, and a really protective process when you do it through the way it's supposed to be done. There's so much vetting, and there's so many bells and whistles, and there's so many professionals involved to make sure that the what ifs don't happen.
Mhm.
um,
Absolutely.
that you should have confidence. Yes, to a certain extent you have to have a huge leap of faith when you do this, but there are so many protections built in. So from a personal perspective, I'll tell you also, it's not, it feels like a consolation prize if it's not how you originally intended, creating your family. It's not.
Mhm.
Your kids are your kids. It is a means to an end. And
Mhm.
if it was always going to be your journey, if you're a same-sex couple, a single individual, it's a beautiful human it's a beautiful human experience, like to go from not knowing this person to feeling like they'll always be part of your family in some way in your heart, and
Mhm.
it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. So I say try and look at the beauty in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a lot of parents, it kind of is an unknown, or it definitely is an unknown territory because, who just casually goes through surrogacy, right? Like building family is such a big
Yeah,
journey in anyone's life, and for there are so many reasons for parents to use a surrogate, whether it's medical reasons or not. And I do think this is a pretty big journey and process for anyone to go through, and especially when there are so many things that you don't know and you don't have control over, it causes a lot of
right.
anxiety. But we always tell parents everyone here is here to help you succeed. And
Yeah,
all the professionals are here to help you succeed. And it's obviously very important for you to choose the professionals that you trust the most because, they're going to be the ones holding your hands and walking you through every step of the journey. But we're out here to help you as well as your surrogate. And some parents, get very anxious because they don't know who is going to be their surrogate by the time they start their journey, right? They don't have a
right.
surrogate. They don't have a profile to look at yet, and they don't know who that person is going to be. But just know that surrogates are here to help as well. Like, surrogates, they have the biggest heart, and
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
the people who had their own, babies born already, and they have enjoyed the pregnancy and delivery
right.
experiences, and that's why they're, putting themselves out there to help other people build their families and give the gift to other people as well. So I just wanted to let the parents out there know, stay hopeful. It doesn't matter what you're going through now. It doesn't matter how easy or difficult of a time you're having. Just stay hopeful. You will become a parent one day if, that's something you're struggling with right now.
Amen. Couldn't agree more.
Well, Alexis, thank you so much again for joining us today. I think you shared so much, valuable information with us. And for the parents out there, if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us and reach out to Alexis as well. And we'll be more than happy to answer any additional questions you have. We'll be more than happy to help you with your journey. And I hope everyone stays warm and happy holidays to everybody.
Thanks so much, Chris.
All right. Bye bye, Alexa. Thank you.
Bye.